My Bipolar Backpack, To the Bottom of Mental Illness and Back. Written by Susan Ralphe. Narrated by Janice Mcnally. Chapter 1. I was hugely miserable but didn't know why. It was like feeling the pain of a compound leg fracture but not being able to see the bone poking through the skin. Without warning, invisible bands inside my head often tightened until the pressure became almost unbearable. Holding my hands to the sides of my head for what seemed like hours, I feebly wished this horrendous tension would go away. It didn't. It sometimes worsened almost to the point that I thought my head was going to explode. Simultaneously, my thoughts raced as though my brain were continually in fast-forward mode, while my ability to think lessened. I vividly pictured my brain curling up into a fetal position, and this terrifying thought turned me into a statue, frozen in place. Ignoring the beauty of spring in Arizona, I climbed into bed and pulled the covers over my head every time I had the opportunity. In my petrified state, I didn't know what else to do, and my husband Roger wasn't helping me. I was on the other side of the world from decision-making. A thick phone book full of doctors' names and numbers took up space on my bedside table, but I was no longer capable of opening it and making an appointment. Besides, what kind of doctor would I have called? A specialist in misery? My mind wasn't allowing the words mental illness to enter my consciousness. I wonder if this is how I'll be from now on, I thought. Fear that my mind would never work again was as real as if the intruder in my head were a burglar breaking into my house. The only thing I knew for sure was that my brain wasn't functioning, and the agony of that knowledge made me wish I'd been spared this one remaining grip on reality. I just want this to stop, I thought helplessly. At work, I sat at my desk, a ghost shuffling papers and making phone calls, but doing little writing. I don't know why the newspaper didn't fire me. Maybe it was the nature of my job as an answer-line columnist at the Phoenix Gazette. I worked on multiple consumer complaints simultaneously, and it wasn't unusual to go through periods when none of them were resolved and printed. By late summer, I called in sick repeatedly. At home one morning, I turned on the TV to watch the Today Show. Bryant Gumbel and Jane Pauley looked familiar, but when I tried to think of their names, I couldn't. I watched a couple of interviews, focusing on every word, but without any idea of what had been said when the segments were over. I turned off the TV in frustration. My eyes were taking in images on the screen, but they were getting lost on the way to my brain. Trying to read was even worse. When I opened a novel, I couldn't remember what had happened on previous pages or recall the names of the characters. The written word had been separated from me. It was part of my world as a journalist, but that was a place where I no longer fit. I gave up on reading as well as watching TV. Frustration and pain became my sole companions, and my mental anguish was worse than any physical pain I had ever known. It was a case of segregation, me in my corner and the rest of my old world in the other. I shut out Roger and my young sons, Jason, 12, and Matt, 5, from the bedroom. Often, when they left the house for work and school, I slipped downstairs into the kitchen for crackers, then scurried back to bed to eat them. A heavy inertia was holding hostage my interest in everything, including eating, so there were days when crackers alone kept me alive. On the world stage that year, Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of Russia's Communist Party, while in this country newspapers were running stories about issues still on the front page today: abortion, AIDS, and Social Security reform. At local theaters, Back to the Future, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Rocky IV, and Cocoon were entertaining moviegoers. In my world, no important external events happened that year. I missed all the new movies and books.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?